In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. And you're right in the thick of it. Darktide throws you into the diseased heart of Tertium, a hive city crawling with corruption, heresy, and nightmares that should not exist. This isn't just a shooter, it's a chaotic 4-player co-op experience where every class plays differently. From the hammer-wielding Zealot to the warped Psyker. Build your reject, customize your loadout, survive together, or fall apart alone. Darktide blends brutal melee and intense range combat in a world dripping with lore, filth, and fire. Your mission? Purge the heretics, hold the line, and maybe, just maybe, stop the fall of a city doomed by its own sins. Welcome to Warhammer 40,000 Darktide. The hive is dying. You are the cure. Darktide. A game that, like a fresh guardsman conscript, was hurled headfirst into the meat grinder when it launched. The year is 2022, and the hive city of Tertium wasn't the only thing falling apart. So was the game. Picture this. You load into your first mission, brimming with hope, last gun in hand, and boom! Crashes, frame drops, stuttering worse than a servo skull with a corrupted cogitator. Some features, like crafting and a scoreboard, weren't just broken, they just weren't there. And just when you thought you couldn't feel more like a Cadian during the fall of Cadia, you saw the cash shop. Cosmetics, reskins, prices that made you wish Exterminatus would come early. The community, furious. The Emperor protects, more like the Emperor shrugs. But even amidst the carnage, some loyal players held the line, hoping, just hoping, that Fatshark would turn things around. Much like a commissar hoping that his squad would finally hit something this time. And work on the game, they definitely did. Between the terrible launch and up to now, Fatshark has put in countless hours of work on the game, improving, fixing, and changing many elements of the game to make it a better experience. Let's talk about the timeline for Darktide from 2023 up till now. In 2023, Fatshark put a halt on all new content development. This was to focus on the game's progression, stability, and performance. But more importantly, they announced the blessings of the Omnissiah update at the start of February, which specifically targeted crafting within the game. This was a key change, and I'd argue a massive milestone upon which the game was going to take a turn for the better, and it was a step taken to address specifically the player complaints about RNG and itemization. In May 2023, the penance system gave us cosmetic rewards for showing off our skill, and no, not the cash shop kind. In August's update, the mission board got smarter. Maelstrom difficulty rolled in with spicy modifiers such as extra specialists, high intensity, chance of specialists to turn into weakened monstrosities to name a few, and resources became account-wide. Finally, we could experiment with other classes without feeling like a Slanesh cultist trying to mainline suffering. October 2023 introduced a comprehensive overhaul to the class system that significantly improved and expanded upon build options for the 4 existing classes, as well as adding 3 distinct subclasses for each of them. Surprisingly, Darktide also launched on the Xbox Series X and S as well with this update, which saw the introduction of new weapons and variants, new missions, new map zones, new enemy type, and combat stims. Across the November and December, the Traitor Curse story arc added new missions and zones as the developers began weaving an actual evolving narrative, featuring the Karnak twins as a special assignment. 2023 saw a lot of good work being put into the game, but 2024 was where Darktide shifted from maybe I'll try it again to okay, I'm hooked. April 2024 saw quality of life updates to the penance system, although this was mostly just a small update as Fatshark was laying the tracks towards the next update for June. With the Warhammer Skulls event coming up in June, Fatshark announced during the event the next update called Secrets of the Machine God. This update brought a new map, weapons, Ogryn pickaxe, yes please, and fresh content that had us shouting, "For the Emperor!" and me cosplaying a discount Doomslayer with the double barrel shotgun unironically. September had a very important update for the game. September's Unlocked Unloaded update resulted in the introduction of a new mission type called Operation, with the first one being Rolling Steel. Fatshark also conducted a complete itemization overhaul, with the major change being how blessings and perks are obtained and applied to your gear. The main aim of this was to reduce the levels of RNG required previously in order to get good rolls for weapons, to give players more agency in crafting desired loadouts instead of being at the mercy of 3 to 4 levels of RNG. The lock system on items was completely removed, allowing players to completely change the weapons perks as well as blessings. As you upgraded the weapons family's masteries from 0 to 20, you got access to the higher tier perks and blessings as well. There was still RNG involved, but this was mostly RNG for getting weapons with the desired base stats. The rest you could just work towards by gathering materials and tailoring to your liking. You could also change weapon types freely. For example, you could choose between the Rashad, the Achilles, or the Antax combat axes as long as you had one combat axe in your inventory, allowing you to use the weapon whose playstyle and moveset you like the most. This update also added weapon accessibility by unlocking class-exclusive melee weapons and being available for more classes. For example, the dueling sword, which was previously exclusive to Psykers, was now available to the veteran and the zealot as well. They also added a party finder system to the game, which was a new social feature to help making teaming up with other players easier. Although I can't say for myself if this made any difference, since I usually play with friends or just play solo queue into public lobbies anyway. December 2024 introduced the Grim Protocols update. This update added Havoc mode, which was supposed to be an endgame sweat-inducing gauntlet for the bravest among us, plus new weapons, a new mission called Dark Communion, and PlayStation 5 support. This brings us all the way up to 2025 and to the present. With 2 years of great content and improvement to the core gameplay loop, Darktide was sitting in a pretty good place, but Fatshark was not done. In March, Fatshark introduced the Nightmares and Visions update, which added Mortis Trials, a wave-based roguelike mode, and finally gave the Ogryn its rightful place as the melee frontliner supreme by overhauling the Ogryn talent tree. And all of this leads up to the current update, which is called the Battle for Tertium. This update was announced at the Warhammer Skulls 2025 event and introduced the first paid DLC character for Darktide, the Adeptus Arbites, featuring a Cybermastiff sidekick because who doesn't want a murder dog? And new weaponry. This update also provided a complete overhaul to the core player experience and introductory campaign in order to provide a clearer narrative focus and more linear progression path for newer players. This was also supplemented with a mission board system rework where missions were no longer tied to specific difficulties but instead allowed players to select a mission and desired difficulty. Alongside all of this, Fatshark also expanded upon the Mortis Trials by adding a higher difficulty and more lore drops for Shipmistress Brahms and a new in-game event called Inferno. With the changes to the story progression and the new character being introduced, Fatshark added over 900 new banter lines between all of the characters to reflect the new class and the current update, alongside extensive weapon rebalancing, tweaking, changes, and numerous quality of life changes and bug fixes. Now that I've brought you up to speed with the state of the game over the past couple of years, let's talk about the basic systems and core gameplay loop that you as a player will engage in while playing Darktide. At its heart, Darktide is all about jumping into a mission with 3 other brave, or foolish, souls, slaughtering heretics in brutal close combat, ranged weapons optional. You get to hoard plasteel, diamantine, and ordo dockets like a true servant of the Imperium. You'll pick a class between Zealot, Psyker, Veteran, Ogryn, or the new Arbites. You'll choose your mission and difficulty. You'll earn resources and loot based off of your performance, and you will return to upgrade, craft, and customize your war gear with a crafting system that now actually respects your time. Range combat exists, sure, but in true 40k fashion, melee is still king. You'll still be swinging, blocking, and dodging once the ammo runs dry or the horde closes in, especially on those higher difficulties. The Psyker is the one class that can exclusively play range, sort of. With the staff weapons, it gives the Psyker essentially a ranged weapon with no ammo requirements but requires you to manage a peril meter instead. Despite that, you will still find situations where you will need to fight within melee range and dodge, especially if you're being pushed by a bunch of ragers swinging wildly at you. The more you play, the more you learn map layouts and learn how to counter different enemy types across different scenarios. For example, getting caught out in the open on the carnival maps when facing a wall of gunners usually will spell certain death for players unless you can get behind cover and take pot shots at them while dipping in and out of cover. Alright, let's talk about some pros and cons. I have my own list, and I also got some feedback from a bunch of friends and fellow Darktide players of varying degrees of experience. Let's start with some pros. Darktide has a very good core gameplay loop, with a good balance between ranged and melee combat despite being largely a melee-based system. It is set in the 40k universe instead of the fantasy Warhammer universe, which personally is a big reason why I got sucked into Darktide over Vermintide. More importantly, it's not about the Space Marines, which, while would be fantastic, it's great to see a different facet of the 40k universe get a focus. It's got a great upgrading system for gear with a little bit of RNG and mostly just rewarding playtime. There is a penance system to chase long-term goals for cosmetics and other unlocks, incentivizing playing different playstyles to try them out. Darktide has a great modding scene with some fantastic modders doing great work, whether it's for quality of life, memes, and general gameplay enhancements, but it also comes with its own cons. The modding community also has a close contact with Fatshark devs who support the modding scene very well as well. The game has a fantastic visual design. Jumping into a mission instantly ticks all the boxes for grimdark for me, with the level design feeling very much so that it belongs in the 40k universe. The lighting in the game looks fantastic, especially when you play with the lights out modifier and have limited lights, or a firebomb explodes, it lights up the environment around it and it just looks incredible. Darktide's audio design is one of the most complex layering system, which warns about elites and disablers spawning, bosses spawning, hordes spawning when you're about to get attacked from behind, whether you're about to get attacked by a trapper, with the appropriate charge up firing sounds, and it all comes together in a really great way and works very well. But it also tends to break at the worst of times, and I'll explain that in the cons section of this video later. The Darktide OST is made by none other than Jesper Kid himself, and the OST slaps harder than a chainsword meme. The game has great lore drops, context, and banter between the different characters. Whether it's aboard the Morningstar, during missions, or between the different vendors, this game has a lot of voice lines for all of the characters. Listening to the chatter gives context clues for the story of the game, background lore for the character, and great funny moments between player characters in mission, as well as the lore that was added via the Mortis trials for Zola, Brahms, and Morrow gives more information about those characters and their history too. It is a live service game, so it has an evolving storyline that progresses slowly over real time, changing details to the maps and missions we run, the different events we face, the voice lines that are spoken in game, and even in the enemies that we fight. With the Arbites update, Fatshark overhauled the new user/player experience, introducing cutscenes for the War for Tertium story arc, leading up to where we stand today in the game's story progression-wise and where we go from there. There is a wide variety of maps, difficulty, and mission types to choose from. Havoc is for the sweats, Mortis for the memes and fun builds, but also feels challenging on the higher difficulties. This caters to all skill levels of the game, allowing people to play at the difficulty that they are comfortable with. And finally, the game is pretty easy to jump into, with a high ceiling to mastering the different classes, weapons, and game modes. You can put in as much or as little time as you want into the game without feeling overwhelmed or underwhelmed by the game. It can be as easy as playing a couple of games or a solid 4 to 5 hour session depending on your mood, and you're rewarded accordingly with no downsides, especially with the change to the mastery system for weapons and removal of a lot of the gacha elements. Those were a lot of pros, and I don't want to come across as a dick-riding zealot, but let's talk about some cons that the game has. Some of the classes feel a little bit unbalanced, or rather, it just feels a bit underwhelming currently due to one main build and the others being a bit lackluster. Having said that though, I do trust the QA and testing team will work on this as they have with the other classes. The lack of tooltips and thorough explanation as to what perks and verbs such as rending or impact do in game. While playing the game, I have learned what such perks and blessings and talents do. The game does not really explain this sort of stuff well to a new player, which makes build crafting for a new player a little bit harder when they don't understand what certain perks and combinations do. Relying on something like the Darktide build website to copy paste the build but not understanding why it works the way it works is a surefire way of having inexperienced players in higher difficulties dying over and over, having a terrible experience, and then ultimately quitting with a negative experience of the game. The tooltips getting overhauled to give more context, explanations, and such would go a long way, or better yet, a tutorial page that explains exactly what certain terms mean and what they actually do without needing to go into the math or further explanation of things. Darktide's audio system is extremely complex, and when it works, it's one of the most well-designed systems. However, when it breaks so bad that it goes from being great to absolute shite. You will have moments where the disablers will be hitting you without any sort of warning, bombers blowing up in your face, or a variety of other such instances where you get knocked off the map from an enemy that you didn't even know was there because the game didn't warn you. I think this is a game engine limitation, and I think while Fatshark can work on this to a degree, I feel like this is one of those things where it will not really go away, especially at the higher tier difficulties though. There's just so much happening. There is a lot of toxicity in public lobbies. Bring friends or brace for impact. If you play in dedicated groups and communities, you won't notice it as much since you're playing with friends and are on Discord voice of pre-made lobbies. But if you play with public lobbies, you'll definitely end up experiencing at some point or the other, especially when you start entering Havoc. While muting and ignoring chat can help your sanity, it's definitely a problem that needs to be addressed by Fatshark in some way. This toxicity isn't just in speech, but also in playstyles. Having a player run off on their own, aggro a wall of crushers, die, and complain about no res and then quit, leaving the team to deal with the new horde while they're still dealing with the previous horde is still a thing I've seen way too often in public lobbies. Updates are pretty slow and usually pretty buggy and unpolished. Fatshark have been very slow with updates for Darktide, and the communication with the community has been pretty bad over the years. Coupled with that toxicity I talked about earlier on of the community, places like Reddit, the forums, and Discord are not usually great places to be as a player or, sometimes even as a developer. Having to be subject to some of the worst humanity has to offer, and their Twitch and YouTube presence has been next to nil, and this was one of the reasons why the game was in a low spot for a very long time. Having said that though, this has improved a lot this year, especially with the 2 months leading up to the Arbites update, with regular dev posts, regular interactions, Twitch drops campaigns, etc. But they still have ways to go. Just by adding stuff like a roadmap, regular contact, providing updates, and keeping the community both in the loop as well as hyped to the future of the game will go a long way. Which brings me to my next couple of points. The MTX FOMO. Adding a rotating store creates FOMO for people who miss out on great skins, but can also result in a negative experience and frustrate players. I think learning from a game like Helldivers 2 that adds the different battle passes that you can unlock over time, also earning some of the currency to help towards progressing the next unlock is great. Fatshark doesn't need to copy that system, but drawing inspiration from a game that has done MTX rather well is never a bad idea. Expanding on that, a lot of the skins tend to be reskins or recolors. This is a game that can 100% benefit from the Warframe style 10th gen Steam workshop to help spice things up. This will generate more income for Fatshark and give modders and artists a new avenue to explore and develop. This would require more dev time to curate as well, however, but by setting a strict submitting policy in terms of QA, etc., you can pre-filter a lot of the stuff out too. The game has not expanded upon the in-game commissary for cosmetics either since it launched, and with a more focus on paid skins. While I understand the reasoning for this, the commissary is a great place to add some skins and some cosmetic incentive for players to spend the currency that vets are hoarding, and what players can look forward to spending. Modding is kind of like a 50-50 conversation. Some people consider some of the mods as cheating, others like myself consider them necessary because the base game either does not have the feature the mods add or does not allow for those by default, like the custom HUD for example. And this brings me to my final point. There is a distinct lack of sniper rifles and more importantly, scopes for ranged weapons. While I understand that Darktide is primarily a melee based game, it does feature ranged gameplay, and that ranged gameplay is part of the core gameplay loop for Darktide. Having some DMRs, sniper rifles, or similar weapons would be fantastic. Alternatively, I'd just appreciate proper functioning scopes for weapons such as the DMR version of the autogun or the Hellbore lasgun. Now, don't get it twisted. Despite all the pros and cons that I listed, I think that Fatshark has put in a significant amount of work into this game over the past couple of years, and I've made a lot of good improvements to the core gameplay loop, to the general progression for new and returning players as well as veterans of the game. With the introduction of the test server and inviting select players to help test and provide feedback on changes and new content before its release is ahead of schedule, it has allowed Fatshark to really focus on the pain points for the game and improve it in a way where the game offers a lot of choice, a lot of freedom to the players in terms of how they can play the game. There's still many things that can be improved and some things that are more complex or are tougher problems to tackle that require time. Suffice to say though, Fatshark is definitely doing a good job so far to tackle these problems and try and improve the game. If they keep on the current trajectory of content delivery and quality of updates, I reckon that Darktide has a pretty bright future in this grimdark universe. I hope you found this video informative and it helped you in your decision on whether it's worth jumping into the game or not. I definitely have been enjoying the game despite my previous complaints, and I know that there are many like me who want to see Fatshark make Darktide its best possible version of itself. I will be covering more Darktide based content in the future, whether it's news, updates or the like, and so if you enjoy this content, please make sure you give it a like, leave a comment with your thoughts about the update, or if you have any questions. The engagement itself will help this video reach more people, and perhaps in the long run help the health of the game too. Darktide went from a launch that felt like Nurgle himself had blessed it to a game worthy of the Emperor's Light. There's still work to be done, but for those who stayed loyal, or those considering joining the fight, Tertium is worth saving. Now, grab your chainsword, say a prayer to the Omnissiah, and get in there, you heretic-slaying legend.